Hey everyone, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Keisha, and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of April. So for those of you who have been around a while, you might have noticed that I haven't posted in a couple of weeks, and that is because I've been very busy as a children's librarian. Getting ready for summer reading program in June has taken quite a bit of my time. If you don't know what a summer reading program is, check out your local public library and see if they have anything going on. A lot of times there's things for all ages, though it's primarily focused on children. There's also stuff for like teens and adults too. So go ahead and check out your summer reading program or your local library. I'm going to put a shameless plug in there. Moving forward, I only read 13 books in the month of April, which may sound like a lot to some of you, but 7 of those were graphic novels, 3 of them were middle grade, and 3 of them were adult. So the graphic novels did not take me that long to read, nor did the middle grade, and it's just been hard for me to kind of get through books this month because I've been so busy and I have not been prioritizing my time the best that I can. So first off, I just want to go ahead and tell you that I'm still reading The Invited by Jennifer McMahon. If you remember back in January, I read The Winter People by her and I really enjoyed it. I like the historical mystery aspect of it and like the dual timelines where it goes back from past to present. The Invited is not so much doing that. It started out in the past and then we've been in the present since with where I'm at in the book so far, which I'm about a third of the way through. I'm reading it really slowly and I had to kind of put it down and read some other things for a little bit. But I am really enjoying it and I plan to finish it in May. But if you don't know, The Invited is essentially a story about these people who are building a haunted house. You start off in the past and you learn about a woman named Hattie who is accused of being a witch and she was hung. Then you jump into the future in Connecticut. This couple has decided to move out in the country in this bog that is supposed to be haunted by Hattie. And they end up building a house from wood that is part of the tree where Hattie was hung. So essentially, like I said, they're building a haunted house. I don't typically read stuff like this. I'm not a huge I like middle grade spooky ghost stories, but in real life, just to let you guys know, I don't believe in ghosts. In my personal experience and my personal opinion of this and beliefs is that there are no ghosts and that if you mess with anything similar to that, you're messing with demonic forces. I am a Christian and that is part of my beliefs as a Christian, and so that's just a kind of a side tangent. But so I don't usually read stuff like this because I don't really believe in the story that Hattie would be a ghost. But it is intriguing. I do like Jennifer McMahon, so I'm giving it a go. But moving on from that, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the graphic novels that I read, and then I'm going to save the rest of the adult books for last because I feel like those are some of my favorites. So first up, I read Space Boy by Stephen McCranie. I read book number 9 in this series, and I'm really enjoying it. This is a middle grade graphic novel series that I found at my library, and it really caught my eye because there were faces on the spines and they line up to make a picture, and I thought that was really cool. So I picked up the first book, and the first book and how the series starts is you follow this main character who sees that everybody has a flavor, and I can't remember exactly what everybody's flavor is that she sees in the first book, but her dad is similar to he's hot cocoa and her mom is like peppermint or something like that. And so she sees different people as their flavors, and then she meets this boy who does not have a flavor, and so she gets curious about him and wonders where he came from and why he doesn't really talk to anybody, and then the story goes on from there. I won't say anything else because it would be very easy to spoil this, but I would highly recommend checking out the series if you like middle grade graphic novels. I've really enjoyed it so far. I know there's another 1 or 2 books coming out later this year, so I'm really excited to get my hands on those as well. But as for number 9, I gave it 4 stars. Next up, I read book number 4 in the 5 Worlds middle grade graphic novel series, which was the Amber Anthem. I gave it 5 stars. I can't say much about this one either, except that if you like Amulet and Avatar: The Last Airbender, you might like this series. It's kind of like a mashup of both of those, and I've really liked the Amulet series. I have not read any of the manga for Avatar. I've watched a few of the episodes that used to come on Nickelodeon, but I'm not super into Avatar. Not that I don't think it's good, I just have not sat down to watch it. So, but if you like either one of those things, that's kind of along the lines of what this series will follow. But anyways, like I said, I gave book number 4 in the series 5 stars. And the final book, I believe, comes out this summer or fall. I can't remember. But once we get that at my library, I'll be reading that too and finishing up the series. Along the same lines of series, Brenna Thumler wrote a book named Sheets, and she just released the second book in that series, which is Delicates. And I remember really liking Sheets. I apologize if you hear a train in the background. I'm not going to stop talking because I finally feel like I have words, because I've been struggling to film this video. You guys don't know that because I edit, but my words have not been formulating very well today. So if you hear a train in the background, I apologize in advance. Just deal with it. So anyways, Brenna Thumler wrote a book called Sheets that I read, and I remember really enjoying it. It was about this girl who, wow, that's a really loud train. Okay, maybe I will. Hold on just a second. So like I was saying, the main character in Sheets, her and her dad had recently lost her mom. Her dad was in a really deep depression, and they own a laundromat, which she has kind of had to take over because her dad has been so depressed. And she ends up meeting this ghost named Wendell, and he's a sheet ghost. And it kind of tells the story of their friendship and how they bond over different things in their life. Now the heater or the air or whatever that is going to turn on. So I apologize for all the random noise in this video. Hopefully it won't just destroy it. So anyways, I decided to read Delicates. And Delicates brings in a new main character and different aspects. The new main character, like, well, I guess she's like not a main character, but it's another main character. The main character's still in the book, but you have kind of two. And the new one likes to do photography, and she wants to photograph ghosts. So that's kind of the storyline that this one follows. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the first one. I'm not sure if it was like the mood that I was in when I read both of the books that made me feel different about both of them or what. But I gave this one 3 stars. I do think it was good, and I think most people will still enjoy it. It dealt with a lot of really good topics that I think that age group needs to be more familiar with, and needs to kind of see how different things play out for different people. So I do think it was really insightful in that aspect, but I did only give it 3 stars because for personal enjoyment, I just didn't like it as much as I liked the first one. Next up, you might remember that I read the first in the graphic novel series of Babysitter's Little Sister. Well, this month I read the second book, which is Karen's Roller Skates, and I also started the Babysitter's Club graphic novel series, like just the first, because it was Babysitter's Club, then Babysitter's Little Sister. And I know those were like real, not real books, but you know what I mean, like written novels before they were graphic novels. And that was all taking place during my childhood, and somehow it just bypassed me and I never read the Babysitter's Club. So as an adult, I'm now reading through the Babysitter's Club just in graphic novel form because I like picture books. So I read Kristy's Great Idea, which is book 1, and then The Truth About Stacey, which is book number 2. So in the actual Babysitter's Club series, Kristy's Great Idea, The Truth About Stacey, I gave both of those 5 stars. And then Karen's Roller Skates, which is number 2 in the Babysitter's Little Sister series, I gave that one 4 stars. So Babysitter's Club, I'm sure most of you already know, but if you don't, it's just a story about these friends who get together and form a babysitter's club, and they take turns going and babysitting different kids in the neighborhood. So I did not babysit a lot growing up, which may be why I might have not been so familiar with the series or might not have read it, but I did not babysit, and so I guess I didn't feel like I could relate. But now, I don't know, I just really enjoy the series, so I'm really looking forward to continuing it. The last graphic novel that I read was Allergic, and Allergic is about this girl who is allergic to dogs, or, well, not just dogs, but any animals with fur or feathers or anything like that. And it's kind of crazy because it's her and her 2 brothers, and her 2 brothers have each other, her parents have each other, and they're about to have a baby. And she feels kind of alone or left out, and so she wants a companion. And so they go to the pet store to get a dog, and come to find out she's allergic and she can't have anything. And she tries all these different pets out and nothing seems to work. And things progress on in different ways in the story, how different friendships are affected by her allergies and all that stuff. So I thought this story was really good. It really tugged at my heartstrings, and I just loved it. I just think it was great. I don't think there was any fault in it. I highly recommend it. I gave it 5 stars. So yeah, if you like graphic novels, this is definitely a good one to pick up. Next, I'm going to move on to middle grade. So first up, I read Cosmo by Carlie Sorosiak, and I read this for the middle grade book club that I host at my library. And so this is the book that my kiddos voted on that they wanted to read this month. And it's about a dog, if you can't already tell by the cover. So our dog's name is Cosmo, and Cosmo is best friends with Max. And then you have Max's mom and dad, his sister Emmeline, and Max's mom and dad have started arguing, and Max knows that this could lead somewhere bad, and he does not want that to happen. Divorce has been thrown around, and so he decides that he is going to enter Cosmo and himself into a dance competition and see if they can win the competition and land a movie role. Then maybe that will help his family see that it's important that they stay together and that they belong together. Maybe it'll help them stop fighting. So that is the story, and this book was just, it was so wholesome. It was so good. It's told from the perspective of Cosmo, and so anything from the perspective of an animal, I think, just makes the story even better, because you get aspects where Cosmo doesn't understand certain things about humans. For example, when they're going out trick-or-treating for Halloween, Max's dad says, "Ready, Freddy?" And Cosmo's like, "I don't know why he says Ready, Freddy, because his name is Max." And so it's just stuff like that where, you know, you don't understand as a dog what different things are like as a human. And he's like, "Well, why do I get in trouble for getting on the furniture? My bed's made out of the same material," and stuff like that. So I think that makes it lighthearted in the midst of some heavier things going on. And then you also have times where Max and Cosmo communicate non-verbally, and you learn how Cosmo does different things to let Max know, you know, how he's feeling, or to comfort Max. And so it's just a really good story. I think most people would like this. I highly recommend it. My kiddos really enjoyed it. Most of them, their parents are together, I believe, or they have not. I don't want to say, I would say the majority. I only have 9 kids, but the majority of them, their parents are together, and a couple of them have experienced separation. And so this is a good story for those who have experienced separation, to see kind of how it can play out in a more positive way at some point, or the ones who have not experienced this can see what it might be like for other kids who have. And so I think it's a really good story. It definitely deals with some heavier subject matter at times, but it is a really good story. I have kids ranging from 7 years old to 12 years old in my book club, and they all really enjoyed it and liked it and handled it really well. So I would recommend this for anybody that's looking for a good middle grade with an animal companion. And I gave this one 5 stars. I can't remember if I mentioned that, but yeah, I highly recommend. Then I read There's No Ham in Hamburgers, which is essentially facts and folklore about America's favorite food, or fast food. So this book talks about, there's another train going by, sorry guys. Apparently it's train day. But this book talks about the origins of like where certain foods came from. So like hamburgers, hot dogs, ice cream, chicken fingers, all this different stuff. So I'll go ahead and tell you that there's a legend behind hamburgers. This is just to kind of pique your interest in picking this up. It is middle grade, but I do think adults would enjoy this as well. I just like the formatting of a middle grade nonfiction book versus an adult. It just looks more interesting to me. But hamburgers, the legend of how they started is that Genghis Khan, him and his soldiers were traveling from Mongolia to China, and they needed some food, but they didn't have time to stop. So they would take raw scraps, like animal scraps, and put them together in a patty and put them between the saddle and the horse while they were traveling. And while they were traveling, the friction from the saddle and the horse moving would create tenderization in the meat, and then they would eat it raw. And so you have your first saddle patty, which ended up becoming a Hamburg steak. You'll learn about that if you read the book. So we had the hamburger steak before the hamburger. In case you guys didn't know, it wasn't on a bun, and then they added a bun. So that's one fun, gross fact from the book, but I thought that it was really interesting and insightful, so I gave it 5 stars. It's just a good side read amidst everything else you might be reading, where you get to learn a few fun facts about food, and some gross facts apparently too. The last middle grade book that I read was The Line of Mars by Jennifer L. Holm, and I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I don't read a lot of sci-fi, and so I knew that if I wanted to read some, middle grade was probably my best bet, because I do tend to enjoy most middle grades that I read. And this book was about a boy who is in a, like a settlement on Mars. And there's like a US settlement, and then other countries have settlements on Mars as well. And some things are going on that confuse our main character. He doesn't understand why the teenagers, or his best friend, who's now like a little bit older than him, is acting weird. He doesn't understand why they can't communicate with these other settlements, why the US is kind of separated. And then this sickness breaks out and affects all the adults, but doesn't affect the kids. And so they have to kind of figure out what to do to save the adults and save their settlement. And so this story was really good. I really enjoyed it. The only thing is I feel like it was kind of slow at the beginning, which I didn't mind it being slow, but it was like slow, and then everything happened in the last like third of the book or fourth of the book. So I wish that it would have been paced a little bit better, I guess, and not just have everything kind of hit and happen at the end. I would have liked it more spread out, or for the story to have been longer so it wouldn't have just felt like a word jumble at the end. But regardless, I still really enjoyed the story, and I recommend it for a lot of people. Even if you don't like science fiction, I think that this might be a good one for you to try out. So I would highly recommend picking that one up. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the last 3 books that I read, which were all adult books. The first one is Why You Should Read Children's Books Even Though You Are So Old and Wise. This is by Katherine Rundell. I have not read anything by Katherine Rundell before, but I know she reads or writes a lot of middle grade books. And I had high expectations for this one, and then it came in and it was like this big. And it's an essay, which, I mean, but it was this big. And I read it in one sitting. And I'm going to say something kind of harsh, but just understand this is my personal opinion. I had high expectations. I was let down, and I felt like if I would have read this as someone who doesn't already enjoy reading children's books, I would not have been convinced. There were some good points, but like the overall essay, it didn't sell me. And I feel like the way that I speak about children's books at my library during our weekly staff picks, when we talk about books that we've been reading, or just when I'm talking to different patrons in the library, that I kind of sell the books a little bit better, which is a very bold statement to make. And I understand this, and I understand that somebody's probably going to be mad at me, but I want you to also understand this is my opinion, and that I just didn't think it was very well done. I know a lot of people that really enjoy this and thought it was really well done. So I think it's just up to each person. Somebody may be really convinced by this, and somebody may really not be, like me. So check it out if it sounds interesting to you, but I gave it 2 stars because I was just really let down by it, unfortunately. Next, I read Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano, and y'all, this book was so good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and that's only because in the grand scheme of like other things I've read, I think it was more of a 4-star than a 5-star. But I'm so excited about this book, and it's going to be the first book in a series, so there's more to come. But it follows this girl named Finlay Donovan, and she is a crime novelist. And she's in the middle of a Panera talking to her agent about this new book. She's pitching her new book. And this lady that's sitting at the table next to her overhears their conversation, thinks Finlay is a hit woman, and so she slips her a piece of paper and basically asks her if she can kind of dispose of her husband. So that is kind of the springing point of the story, where we start out, and then it has kind of if you like Dead to Me on Netflix, if you've seen that show, you would probably like this book. Also, if you're a big fan of like Thelma and Louise type stories, this is a good one because our main character gets together with another character in the book and has that kind of dynamic with them, and it's really funny. It's one of those things where it just kind of plays out like you're looking at the characters like, what are you doing? Why did you say this? Why did you do this? What are you thinking? Like, it's one of those kind of books, and it was just so good. It was, I guess, more of a cozy mystery, even though it's not necessarily classified as a cozy mystery. It's not it's got the harder elements of a mystery, and there's some things in there, but the humor really provides a lighter aspect to the story, and I thought it was really good. There was a twist that I did not see coming. I did not know who the murderer was, and it wasn't one of those twists that made me like gasp, that I was just so surprised at who it was. I was surprised at who it was, and I did not guess who it was, but it was more of one of those just like, oh, okay, like that. Yeah, I could see that. So it was still a good twist. It just wasn't like so that's the only, it wasn't really a bad thing. I just want to explain how I felt about the twist. And then at the end, where it left off to set up for the next book, just blew my mind. I was like, what? Like, how? And I can't explain that unless you've read it, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I highly recommend this book. If you like mysteries, or if you want to just try to get into mysteries and you haven't read them before, this would be a good one because it's also a little lighthearted. And again, like I said, Dead to Me, Thelma and Louise, if that's your area, definitely try Finlay Donovan out. And finally, I read Somewhere in the Dark by R.J. Jacobs. And actually, I had the pleasure of meeting R.J. Jacobs. He came to our library just a couple of days ago, and we got to talk to him about some of his books. And I really enjoyed meeting him and just kind of getting to know the person behind the story and picking his brain and figuring out more about why he did certain things in his books. And so that was really interesting. Also, if you haven't already heard the train, that's the third train to go by today. So apparently I picked the worst time to film, but we're just gonna truck through it because we're almost done. So Somewhere in the Dark follows Jessie, who's our main character, and Jessie has faced a childhood of neglect in the foster care system. She was paired with a family, or actually a couple of families, who did not treat her very well, and so she has a lot of trauma from that and cognitive and other developmental delays within herself as a result. And one thing from that time period where she was being neglected that she kind of held with her was a love for some country music stars, and she was obsessive about it and went to some shows and some things happened. And yeah, so we are now meeting her with her psychologist and kind of finding out the backstory of all of this and going forward from there. And it turns out that there ends up being a murder, and it is one of the country music stars, and now Jessie is a prime suspect because of her past with these country music stars. So that's kind of the storyline, and I don't want to say too much about it because I could very easily spoil this, but I will say that I'm not typically a person who likes to read suspense novels. I'm more of on a thriller novel. Suspense is usually slower build, and thriller is more like there's always action going on. And this book is very much a psychological suspense, and I think the psychological aspect is really what drew me into it. And the very beginning, it starts out with her and her psychologist and them speaking, and I think that's really what gripped me because I'm very interested in psychology and in mental illnesses and different things that affect different people's lives in different ways for different reasons. And so I really enjoyed that, and that's kind of what gripped me. But then going on through the story, it also takes place in Nashville, which hits a little bit close to home for me because I am a Tennessee girl. If you could not already tell by my accent, now you know. And so I liked so many aspects of the story. There's part of it where Jessie's character, she will say what she's thinking, like as she's processing. She'll say the word for blah, 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 like whatever the definition of the word is, and then she'll say the word after it, which might sound weird me explaining that, but if you read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. I thought that was a really neat aspect of her character. It might be annoying to some, but I thought it was really neat to kind of try to guess what words she was about to say as she was like going through her process. And yeah, she ends up teaming up with some other character in the book, and they make quite an unlikely pair, but their relationship just, I love it so much. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, I guess, except for if you have not heard of R.J. Jacobs, definitely pick up Somewhere in the Dark. He also has another book out. The first book that he came out with was And Then You Were Gone, I think is what it's called. I always get some of them mixed up because there's titles that's And Then She Was Gone, and then he was gone. I think it's And Then You Were Gone, but I'll throw up a picture of it just to make sure. And he also has a new book coming out, hopefully in 2022, that sounds really interesting, but I'll go ahead and hold off explaining that one because I'm hoping in the future to be talking with you guys about it then. And anyways, so yeah, those are the books that I read in the month of April. It was a really weird reading month, and I'm hoping that May will be a little bit better. But as I said in the beginning, I'm still preparing for summer reading, and that program is a month long, like something's going on every day of the week just about. That takes place in June, and I'm still preparing, and so I'll probably be busy until July, but we'll see. Hopefully I can get some reading done. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for stopping by my channel. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit the like button, and if you would like to see more videos from me, you can hit subscribe and the bell to get notifications anytime I post a new video. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!